my goal and actually my motto is no warrior left behind.
You're listening to Nonprofits Today, the podcast that showcases the incredible impact nonprofits have in our ever-changing world. The podcast that gets the pulse on today's economic, social, political, and humanitarian climate straight from frontline leaders, innovative changemakers, and courageous risk takers in our communities and around the globe. And now, without further ado, here's your host, Sarah Box.
Welcome. I'm Sarah Box, your host, and today we are diving into the heart of a cause that affects thousands of individuals, complex regional pain syndrome, or shortened to CRPS. And joining us today is founder and leader of the CRPS Warriors Foundation, Deborah Jankowski. And, she is both a fierce advocate of CRPS and a survivor herself. And she turned this profound personal challenge into a powerhouse of support and hope for others battling this debilitating condition. And if you've never heard of it, I'm not surprised. I don't talk about it a lot. I didn't know anything about it actually until I met Deborah. So she's gone from surviving misdiagnoses and life-threatening surgeries to spearheading this foundation that reaches across the nation and international boundaries. And she embodies the spirit of resilience and compassion. So with that, as a very brief introduction, let's formally welcome Deborah Jankowski to the Nonprofits Today podcast. Hi, Deborah. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. This is so exciting for me. I'm grateful that you have me on today.
Well, it's important, the work you're doing. There's so many nonprofits doing such powerful work. And unless you know somebody who's directly being helped by a nonprofit or you yourself are, oftentimes they're like hidden in our communities. They go about their day, their businesses, they're doing what they're doing, but we don't necessarily know until we need to know. But let's start with some info. Can you tell our listeners what CRPS is?
So CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, originally called RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It affects the peripheral and central nerves. Anybody can get it at any time. It comes through an illness or an injury and can spread without another illness or injury attached to it. You can get one or two limbs, or you can get full body. Full body is rare, but it does happen. I am living proof of that. I have full body, including my intestines, organs, my lungs. Just recently hit my lungs and vocal cords. So with CRPS, like I said, it can affect anybody. We've helped kids as young as 5 to as old as 89. It doesn't care who you are, what your background is. It is not hereditary. It's just strictly a very rare misdiagnosed illness that can hit at any time and anywhere.
So how does it get diagnosed? I mean, you talk about it being misdiagnosed or missed entirely. So if someone were listening, they're thinking, oh my God, this might be what's happening with me or my child or someone I know. How does it get diagnosed? What's the process?
So you do need to see somebody who specializes in CRPS. And you go through the Budapest criteria, which basically is a 5-point criteria that determines whether or not you may or may not have CRPS. CRPS is not diagnosed through blood work. It's not diagnosed through x-rays. You can tell on a bone scan sometimes, just depending on how far along you are. But the Budapest criteria, which determines your motion, your sensitivity to touch, color changes, sweating, breakage of nails and hair follicles, or too much growth. It can also be the brain fog is an aspect of it. It's not part of the Budapest criteria, but it's something that warriors do get. So if you find a doctor that knows what CRPS is or RSD, because there's still a lot of old school doctors out there, then that's who you want to see. If you even think you have it, I tell warriors that may or may not have it. It's kind of like fibromyalgia. A lot of people know what fibromyalgia is. It's been misdiagnosed for fibromyalgia. I was tested for fibro. I do not have fibro. So if you feel like you have those certain symptoms, then I would highly recommend looking for a doctor who specializes in it.
We were talking right before we hit record about how the fires in Southern California have really displaced a lot of folks with this condition. Mm-hmm. And I'm just making an assumption here, Deborah, that if I had the condition and I was living near where I was getting help or treatment or diagnoses, that being displaced would make it so much harder for me. Does the stress exacerbate the condition?
Oh, absolutely. Stress is the number one factor for flares. It's absolutely the worst. Other things that can cause the flares is your diet. That's why we recommend that you see a nutritionist. You want to eat anti-inflammatory foods. Stress is huge. And all my doctors tell me that, especially with my lungs. My pulmonologist, who has done research when it was RSD, flat out tells me, if you continue to stress, you're going to continue to do more damage. Unfortunately, we live in a society that's full of stress. So the best thing to do is mindfulness, is, talk with a psychologist, a counselor, a life coach, somebody who can help you get through the most stressful times. The problem with CRPS is a lot of insurances don't recognize it, or if they do, they don't pay for the treatments because the treatments are extremely expensive. So then you have that stress on it. And this is why it's known as the suicide disease, because you're not heard, you're not getting the help, you're not getting the treatments. And then when you get displaced, it makes that 10 times harder for our warriors to be able to seek the treatments they need.
So managing a nonprofit in and of itself comes with a set of challenges, right? I mean, setting one up takes time, managing it, navigating through it. So can you tell me about why you did this already with you? Because I'm sitting here thinking about stress, but you have this huge commitment. So can you describe the structure, like how you set it up, how you, as a pretty small organization, have been able to go international? Just a little bit about your thinking and the framework.
So when I first was diagnosed, I, like everybody else, had never heard of CRPS. I had no clue it was. I was also caught up in a work comp system, which makes it 10 times worse because you're being moved to doctors that have no clue what to do or how to treat you. And so in my first year of being diagnosed, I actually started volunteering with another CRPS organization. And basically that volunteering just included, going online and looking and answering some questions for others who may have the symptoms. But it wasn't doing anything for me. And it was actually, I was seeing things that weren't good. Like you were getting false information from people, or, you weren't running the organization like a nonprofit should run. I have never owned a company in my life. I have never done something like this. And it was my attorney that actually came to me and said, hey, why don't you start your own nonprofit? And this was in the middle of COVID. And I'm like, oh, okay. And how should we do that? I was actually fortunate enough that my brother at the time worked for a law firm in San Francisco, and he knew people in LA. And so we got a nonprofit attorney that set us up. One of my best friends, he worked alongside me. We got everything, done to get it going. Being in COVID again, IRS saying don't accept any funds because we may not make you a 501c3 because it's COVID, and it could be 6 months to a year. Well, actually within 4 months, we got recognized as, and got our EIN number. And so it just started going. And at that point, I wasn't nearly as bad as I am now. So the way I set the nonprofit up, so it takes a lot of the stress off of me because I can't work. I am 100% disabled. Even volunteering is very difficult for me. So we have a team of 40 volunteers all over the country, and everything is remote. So everybody is in a different department. We set it up that way like a business. So you're in a different department with directors, leads, assistants, and it runs itself. They just will be 5 years old in May, and they run this. I don't. The board of directors and them. I'm here for guidance to help with the funding, but basically there isn't a lot I can do anymore because my condition is so bad. Doing podcasts like this. And as you know, we've had some difficulties, and that's part of CRPS because you never know from one moment to the next. And that's why a lot of people who have this cannot work. especially with full body, because, you can't even volunteer a lot. I have warriors on our staff that there's days that they can't do anything, but it's a volunteer. So we don't expect a lot from our volunteers just because we understand, but they're the ones that are running it, not me. And that's what's been so great.
Well, it makes it compelling for people who want to understand, sometimes nonprofits don't think they can engage volunteers in a way that works. Something you said that was very interesting to me is you set it up like a business, right? So you've got folks who supervise over other folks. So nobody's carrying the stress and the responsibility all the way down line in the business. Your board is engaged.
Yes.
Those an engaged board and for you, either staff or volunteer team that's functional. Those are great hallmarks of a strong organization. And
we've just been very lucky because all of us are volunteers. I don't get paid to do this. Again, I don't really do anything. I paid to set up the foundation. I was very fortunate at the time that I had funding to do that. So nobody getting paid, being remote, we're able to do this and we're able to expand. And my thought process is, if you're going to volunteer, I want to give something back to you for volunteering. So if you're going to school or you're working in a certain field, you want to expand your knowledge and you don't want to just stay in one area, but you want to learn what CRPS is and help others and grow in your own personal way, whether it's to get your degree in PR or social marketing, or you're working for a company that does research for clinical trials and you want more growth and you just want some extra support, then we bring you on. And that's what I think has made us so successful amongst other nonprofits in CRPS.
So as I listen to you, what I'm actually hearing is you're thinking how the work you can do not only benefits your warriors, but the folks who are happy, volunteers who are helping to carry out that mission. Yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we did it the way we structured it, because I want volunteers that want to volunteer. Before I got injured, I worked full-time and volunteered full-time in different aspects, and I loved it. And I want people to feel that way when they come to our foundation, unlike what I did when I first got diagnosed and went to a foundation that, just kind of made me feel like, why are you even here? I should be getting paid, not you. You need to do all the work. That's not the way it works, especially when you have CRPS or any type of chronic pain.
Well, it forces you, because like you and I met last week, we were going to initially record this, and unbeknownst to you at the time, it sounded good when we scheduled it, but at that time it wasn't, right? Mm-hmm. So the ability to have, or understanding that you're not in control of how you're going to feel at any given moment, also, I'm imagining, would make decision making easier, in the sense that, yes, this fits with our mission and our vision. This does not, because we don't have time or energy to be doing the stuff that does not, either our values or what we're trying to accomplish for folks. You're so clear, Deborah, in how you think about your work.
I'm fortunate. And again, my brain doesn't function like it used to anymore. I have, severe brain fog. And that's what I love about this team, because they know when I'm having a bad flare day. They can tell from an email, it makes no sense. But my attorney, she was my mentor, my friend. She's the one that helps me get through these most difficult times. And she's been working with CRPS patients for 30 plus years, so she knows. So I think with her knowledge and support is how I was able to maneuver to where I am today. And having the team that we have is just, like I said, we have members that are volunteers that are warriors, and some that aren't, some who've never even heard of CRPS, but now they know what it is. And, we take all age ranges too. We have people as young as 15 to as old as 67 volunteering for us all over the country. Like I said, we're all over the United States, and we're in 17 different countries. And these are warriors that we've helped, and our resources have been huge. I don't charge resources to be part of my website, because I feel that it's important that our warriors get the help they need quickly and aggressively. So I'm not going to charge you to be a resource if you're a doctor for CRPS. We have free online support groups for our warriors run by one of our doctors. Therapy is extremely expensive. And our warriors living with a suicide disease need to have that outlet. So our doctors dedicate their time and resources to run these groups for us. They don't charge us, and that's because they want to give back. So when you can meet that right kind of group, these right kind of people, it helps. Plus, it's helped me. Work comp has denied more times than I can count, and I've had our resources reach out to me saying, you know what, come here, let me give you a treatment. I don't want to see you suffer.
Yeah.
And so it's really helped me to be here today to be able to talk to you, because honestly, if not, I would be in bed 24/7. Now I'm just in bed maybe 90%, 95% of the time. I do stuff from bed.
You are indeed a warrior. So when you first started crossing international borders, did you find different, not receptivity, but different resources, more or less in other countries than here, or like more awareness?
No, it's basically the same. It's pretty even across the board. Now, there's countries like Italy. We work with MTI Italy, who I've been there. They're amazing organization in Italy, run by Dr. Pacanero. He's absolutely wonderful. The staff's wonderful. And with Italy, they actually, their citizens' health care. So there's the difference. Instead of the United States, who does not. And, it's expensive, it's difficult, there's pre-existing conditions. So that's the biggest difference. So we try to get people to go to places that do that. So like Italian citizens that have CRPS, we're going to send them to MTI before we even think about sending them somewhere else, just because their insurances cover it. And then we have, with our doctors here in the States, we're obviously going to send our warrior to a doctor that's part of our resource team first before we send them in anywhere else. Unless they're not on the team, then we look for somebody in their area. But it's basically the same across the board.
So what, trends or concerns do you have currently? I just heard about the payment, right? Coverage, medical coverage for folks. So that's a concern for you going forward, getting help to folks you need for treatment. What other concerns or optimistic things are you seeing in the work that you're doing today, Deborah?
Our biggest hurdle is donations. We can't live without donations and grants, sponsorships. My goal, and actually my motto, is no warrior left behind. So the only way we can help people is with donations, because then we can provide them scholarships to get them the treatments they need. But donations has always been huge. I mean, we get them and we're very thankful for that. We've received a few grants. We're extremely grateful for that. But as we grow and go into year 5, and we have so many warriors reaching out to us across the country, getting the donations is just really tough right now.
It is one of the things about the more successful you are, the more aware people of you are, you get more requests for your help. The other thing is the awareness of your work gets more known, and hopefully more donors will show up. But they don't always happen at the right time. Like, it'd be good to have the donors first and then the others, but sometimes it's always a little behind the track on it. And you're going, oh my God, these are important people to serve. We need donations.
And we basically, all of our donations that we get that go for scholarships are strictly CRPS related. Like, we don't provide housing or food or, utilities, because there are nonprofits out there for that. We strictly provide scholarships for medical. If it requires transportation to get to a doctor or a clinic, then absolutely. Caregivers, if a patient is at a hospital, like a child is at a hospital, and the parents want to be close by, then if the funds are available, we'll put them up at the Ronald McDonald House or something similar to where the parents can be there close to the kids. But again, it all comes down to donations.
So Deborah, if folks wanted to get involved, what is the best way? for them to connect with you?
If they want to get involved and donate, then they can go to our website, which is www.crpswarriorsfoundation.org, and click the donate button. And they can donate one time, monthly, however they want to do it. If they want to volunteer with us, then they need to reach us via email at info@crpswarriorsfoundation.org.
Great. And what is the best? Oh, it's not a question of best, but if all I could give you was $50, could you use it?
It doesn't matter the amount. Nothing is too small and nothing is too large. Every dollar counts, because this money is going to help our warriors. We have a research team led by volunteers, led by a doctor in Canada who is strictly volunteers on our research team, working with other people doing clinical trials right now. This is huge for us because this is donated time that this team is putting together for us. And so the donations can even be towards the research. Like, we've had people donate, unfortunately, those who have lost a warrior, they had all proceeds go to our research department. And it's specified on there, and we set it up that way. You know, we've had other donors say just use it where you need it, whether it's overhead or scholarships, because again, we don't take a paycheck. So the money will go to helping to run the foundation, to the scholarships, but every dollar amount counts. If it's $1, it's $1. It adds up, honestly. Obviously, we would love to have more than that, but we don't turn any dollar amount away from anybody, because not everybody can do a lot. And volunteering your time is huge too. If you can volunteer some time, that's great.
And it's sometimes when you start to give, like if you haven't been a donor, you know, and I remember in my early years, I was a volunteer, but not a cash donor, right? Mm-hmm. But when you start giving, sometimes you think you can't afford it until you do it. And then you think, I never miss that money, that $5, you know, but then it gets easier as you go, because you're thinking, oh, that felt great. And I know that Deborah could use it. And I actually know this is going where I want it to go. So if you're just hearing about this for the first time, or you know somebody who's been living with and struggling through CRPS, my recommendation would be to check out Deborah's website, see what they're doing. You can direct your funding if you want. As a previous executive director, it's always helpful to have the ones that, if you have confidence in the organization, you say, put it where you need it, because Deborah's needs are going to go up and down. So if you trust the organization, trust them with your donation. Deborah, anything you want to leave us with?
I just highly recommend everybody to check out our website, you know, if you want to learn more. Also, go to our social media channels, our YouTube channel. We did a documentary that's on our YouTube channel. We've also done a Singing for the Cure telethon back in 2021. We've done, you know, there's so much that this foundation has already accomplished in almost 5 years that I am so super proud of. And the fact that, you know, knowing that even though I'm not working and not, you know, doing something on the foundation on a daily basis, we have an amazing team that's there to help. And we have a community team that will find resources for you. They'll locate your doctors, clinics, whatever you need, so you don't have to do it, which is huge, because the last thing a warrior wants to do is be told there's no such thing as that. It's all in your head. That's not what you have. So we're the middleman. We do the groundwork for you so you don't have to, but we have a team for that. Our social media team is absolutely phenomenal. You know, we're on 7 different platforms. We have our online support groups twice a month. You can sign up under the events tab for that. And we just want people to share our social media, because the more awareness we get out there worldwide, the faster we're going to get a cure for this, because there is no cure for CRPS.
Well, you are a warrior. You know, like I just remember the first time I spoke with you, and I'm going, whoa, that's amazing what you've accomplished. And today again. So my hat's off to you. I love how you've thought about and designed this nonprofit, set it up, because you've set it up to be sustainable. and the people whose lives have been changed already by your thoughtfulness and your willingness to go forward and continue doing the work you're able to do in spite of how hard it is.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot because it is hard. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have to come out with a brave face anytime I face anybody. That includes any court cases I have to attend for my own personal case, but it's hard because you're constantly in battle with, that's why you're called warriors. You're in a war with yourself 24/7. You're constantly fighting a war and you don't know from one moment to the next. So I highly recommend anybody who has a loved one, thinks they may have it, or just wants to learn and get involved to reach out to the foundation because we have a team that's ready to support you and be there for you.
Okay, Nonprofits Today listeners, that was a great interview with Deborah. I hope that you took what you needed to take away from it. I know I took something away that I didn't know as well. So we'll be back with a future episode. And Deborah, I wish you all the best. You know where I am, so you can reach out anytime you need.
Thank you. I'm grateful and I appreciate your time and having me on.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Nonprofits Today with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic nonprofit coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah and the Sandbox team at sarahbox.com. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible, so be sure to rate, review, and share this podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. And be sure to tune in and power up with future episodes of Nonprofits Today.